Welcome everybody out to podcast number 486. Tonight we're going to talk about the Titanic. Stay with us.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome everyone. I hope you're doing well. I've really enjoyed this last week and putting together the podcast that we've had recently, and this is probably the last one that's been on my mind just from additional content. I'm going to get back to my list tomorrow probably and back into another series so that we can keep this podcast just high energy and going at it. So this is podcast 486. We're going to talk tonight about the Titanic. As far as how am I doing, business is going well. I'm feeling pretty stable. We're doing a lot with training right now, and I absolutely love that because Elevate's really a training company. We like doing consulting. We like doing project recovery. We like doing these other things, but we really, really, really love training. And I was telling some of the other group, Mr. Montero and I said this in the previous podcast, Mr. Montero and I absolutely murdered the last builder superintendent boot camp. It went so well. And this last TACT production system course, we completely revamped it to get it to where people would understand even the entire meeting system, how you would scale the meeting system all the way to the workers. It's just phenomenal stuff. So I'm really excited. Here's some talk from some fans, some feedback here. Jason, I've really enjoyed your podcast. In them, you speak of several books that you really recommend for managers in the construction industry. Do you have a list of all your book recommendations anywhere that I can refer to? And yeah, I do have that. I posted a blog post on the Elevate Construction IST website blog post, and you can access it there. I've also done LinkedIn links for that. And so I absolutely do. In fact, the book Elevating Construction Senior Superintendents has a full list of those books. And I remember this person, as soon as they reached out, I sent them back. And I actually created a Google Doc for anybody. If you want that, reach out to me. I've also got some other book lists from a really respected CEO, a president of a really large company. And he's really well read and he knows what he's doing. If you ever want that list as well, I can share some of those with you as well. So tonight we're going to talk about the Titanic. And I'm going to see if this works here. I think the audio will still record, even though I've got the video going here. So I'm going to mute the YouTube video and I'm going to hit play and I'm going to watch the Titanic scene that I want to talk to you about it. And let me see if this works here. Let me see. Hold on. Hello. Yep, it still works. Boy, that's awesome. Okay. All right. So I'm watching this scene and I'll pause these as we go. The beginning of this scene, and I think it says Titanic iceberg complete scene. And it shows a picture. Boy, is that a telegraph? I think it is. Where they use Morse code. Boy, that I sound really silly. But anyway, I think it's a telegraph. So there's a different ship, and the opening scene shows the two of the telegraphers. I think that's what you call them. Anyway, I should have looked that up before I started this. But anyway, they're complaining because the messengers on the Titanic aren't listening that there are icebergs. And the messengers on the Titanic, and I don't think they were very well prepared, and they weren't familiar with the water, right? Are basically signaling back to shut up, that they don't want to hear it anymore. And this boat that's farther out ahead is actually like going through waters with icebergs really, really slowly and warning the Titanic who's coming behind them, and they're basically ignoring them. So that's failure number one. I love this scene and how it applies to construction. In fact, 2 or 3 times of late, I've been in a meeting or a training or something like that, and the point led to reflections that were well demonstrated in this clip for the Titanic. Anyway, so that's mistake number one. They didn't have good communication. They weren't learning from the lessons of other ships. And so on our projects, how does that tie to construction? Excuse me, sorry. We must be learning, and we must be learning from other projects, right? We must be listening. We must have those communication channels open. We must be touring other projects, or else we're going to hit the same icebergs the same manpower shortages, the same defaulted contractors, the same bad forming systems, the same practices, the same whatever it is, if we don't go and learn from other contractors. And so that's number one. In that opening scene, if you ever want to do it, just type in YouTube and do the search and type in Titanic, and it'll be Titanic iceberg complete scene. And that's what it starts out with. And I think that's really interesting. Then when they're done with that, it signals out to a scene where the ship, and I don't know what ship warned the Titanic. I should have done my research again. Was it the Carpathia? I don't remember. But anyway, it shows them as they're leaving their room where they're doing their telegraphs, and outside there's a bunch of icebergs. It's absolutely a crazy scene. Then it comes over to the Titanic, and there's two people. I don't know if they're watching it, but they're on the lookout tower. What do they call that? The perch. I can't even remember what they call it, but they're looking for icebergs, and one of them jokes that they can smell ice. And then you see later on the first mate come out with some of the other people that were manning the deck, and somebody had asked, "Hey, did we ever get those binoculars?" And I think the first mate said, "No, we still haven't received them." So we have the Titanic going full speed ahead through iceberg-infested waters with no binoculars, with people joking and kidding that they can smell ice, and telegraphers, I think that's what you call them, ignoring messages from other ships. They are not cohesive. They're not working as a team. So lesson number 2, make sure that we have the right equipment, right? There was a lack of preparation. The captain went to sleep, went to his barracks without making sure that everything was on point. Some people could be like, well, they came up to the iceberg and the captain was asleep. It was the first mate's issue. Well, no, it's the captain's issue. They weren't prepared. The other thing is, in Titanic, the movie, Mr. Ismay, the man who commissioned the ship and asked the captain to go full speed ahead through the night so that they could arrive in New York early for a publicity stunt, they blame him. And the movie is really centered in that direction. And they kind of let the captain off in the movie a little bit. But it's not Mr. Ismay's fault that they're going full steam ahead at full speed through iceberg-infested waters through the night, and he goes to bed. Like, if he wants to agree to something like that, they better darn well have binoculars. They better darn well be listening to other people. He better darn well be up and not go to sleep and blame it on somebody else. It is 100% the captain's fault that ship sank. Let me say that again. And some people might be like, Jason, you're not a historian. Don't care. It is 100% the captain of that ship's fault that they were going that fast at night past icebergs without binoculars and the proper equipment to do what they needed to do. And so these were actual scenes that when I went back and looked at the little clip over and over and over, because I just like this clip a lot, I didn't even see them until I showed it in a class one time, and people pointed it out to me that they were missing the binoculars. Anyway, you fast forward a little bit past the love scene, and you see the two men on the perch, the lookout, and they see the iceberg, and they ring the bell, and it's iceberg right ahead. And the crew comes around and is like, yes, I can hear you. What's wrong? And they say, iceberg right ahead. And they say, full of, or hard to starboard. Sorry. They pull it, they turn the ship hard to starboard. Now, it goes to this really dramatic scene where then they reverse the engines, and the crew down below, it's probably one of the best scenes in, what would you want to call it? Cinematic history, where he's like, reverse the engaging engine. And they shut all the dampers, they turn off the steam, they reverse the engaging engine, they engage the reversing engine. I'm going to kill some. So that's horrible. Anyway, and then they release the steam again, and they start it back up, and they go full speed, or full astern. They go in the propellers start to go in the opposite direction. So they're working well together, but it's too late. They're already too late. The message that we can get there is that we have to be in advanced situations. We have to prepare in advance. We have to be ready for situations in advance. We have to win in pre-construction and construction. We can't go to war and then feel like we're going to make it up and perform. People go out on the project sites and they're like, yeah, we'll make it up. We'll figure it out, whatever. No, you won't. The Titanic said that. They wanted to make it up and figure it out. They put it hard to starboard. They ran the engines in reverse, turned the propellers backwards, and they still couldn't get out of the way of the iceberg. And they flooded those 5 compartments, and the Titanic within about 2.5 hours completely sank. And so I think that's a really good message there. Even though they were high performing in the moment, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to make up for their poor preparation. And so you go through this really neat scene, and it's quite dramatic, and I like watching it over and over. Now, here's a little cute part. One time, well, not cute part, an interesting reflection. There are theories, and we don't know this for a fact because we weren't there, but there are theories that if they would have turned straight into the iceberg, that they would have only flooded 1 or 2 compartments, even though it would have been a massive jolt, much more damage. They wouldn't have flooded more compartments, right? And so here's the other point, is that when they get into situations, did they plan for what they would do? Or was it just assumed that they would figure it out in the moment, right? Where was in the moment, um, thinking about and deciding what to do? There was a single person making the decisions. They knew there were icebergs. Why was there not a plan to, if they were far enough to the left or the right of the iceberg, to steer away from it, too close to steer into it? There wasn't enough brainstorming or wisdom to know what was supposed to be done. Now, some people could be like, there would never be a situation where we would turn into an iceberg. But there are theories, and I really like that theory, that if you had turned the Titanic into the iceberg, it would have been a large jolt. It would have damaged the ship. Probably would have lost some lives because they were going at quite a fast speed. But there is a possibility that they had only flooded a few compartments and they could have stayed afloat. And so this ties to construction perfectly. Where is our plan A, B, C, D, E, and F? I always talk about that. We have to have backup plans, just like Napoleon. The reason he outmaneuvered a lot of his opponents wasn't that he always had the right plan. It's because he had plan B, C, D, E, and F, and his opponents didn't, right? The Titanic didn't have other options. They just ran it hard to starboard and then tried to port round it, and they ended up sinking. They didn't even know. Why did the captain not know that if you breached 5 compartments that the ship would sink? There's a lack of communication there. And so the message here is that we have to have a backup plan. We have to have those collaborative scenarios where we think about the worst case scenario. Remember when I talked about the 10th man rule? One really pointed example, in some parts of the country, it snows or it rains. And once it rains and the crews can't do anything, it's almost like it's a surprise. What the hell? Like it's rained 5 times in the last 3 weeks. Like, how is this a surprise? Why do we not have a contingency plan or backup work or workable backlog or training or assembly that we can do back in the shop once it rains? Why is it this big surprise when it rains? Like, it's going to rain. So where's your plan B, C, D, E, or F? And the Titanic didn't have one. So I really like that one. As they're going around the iceberg, he's like I said, he's got it hard to starboard, and then he attempts to port round it, and the iceberg runs a stream of breaches all the way through the ship. And then so the scene ends with the captain coming out and asking the carpenter to sound the ship once they close all the watertight doors. And it's pretty dramatic, and the first mate is shaken up. It's really nicely done from a cinematic standpoint. And then they gather the designer, the architect of the Titanic, and they gather the plans. And once the carpenter sounds the ship and says, "Hey, there's water here, here, here," he's like, "There are 5 compartments breached. The ship can stay afloat with 4, but not 5, not 5." Why in the heck did the captain and the first mate not know this? Why in the world is this some kind of surprise to somebody? Why do the people operating the ship not know this? Now, I don't know if in fact this is exactly what happened, but I would say that it's, in my mind, that is a failure to lead, because the captain was like wildly surprised and went into this situation not knowing all the data. Now, would he have made a different decision? I don't really know. The other thing is they didn't have enough lifeboats, and when they even though they had enough lifeboats to save half the people, they only filled. I was watching a time lapse of the Titanic, and I was looking at the time lapse, and it was like lifeboat 14 people, lifeboat, 26 people, lifeboat, 38 people. And they're supposed to fit like 68 grown men or something in these lifeboats. So they weren't prepared. They weren't prepared for an emergency. They didn't know what they were doing. This was a new maiden voyage with a bunch of people that were thinking about this from a theoretical standpoint. They hadn't practiced as a team. They were comfortable. They were making bad decisions that they ended up paying for in the end. Basically, their mouth and their minds were writing checks that their bodies couldn't cash. So this was an absolute disaster. So the reflections that I go through is we have to be prepared. We have to have the right equipment. We have to listen. We have to learn from other projects in construction. You have to be the captain of your ship if you're the leader of your project. You can't go to sleep. You cannot go to sleep unless everything is prepared to keep people safe. I don't care if somebody said, or hey, I told them, right? There's no amount of trying to figure it out in the field that's ever going to make something work. We have to make sure that all of those contingency plans, A, B, C, D, E, or F, are planned out ahead of time. It's not the owner's fault that our project is going down. It's not Mr. Ismay's fault that the Titanic sank. It's the captain's. If you're the leader of your project and the owner tells you to do something stupid and you did it, it's your fault. And as we go through this example, at the end, they did not all have all the data on what was going on, and they executed poorly in recovering the project. And so there's like 50 more lessons from the Titanic. I would encourage you to go watch that video and just have some fun with it and see what lessons you can learn there. But I love the fact that it ties into the concept of you are the captain of your ship, and the most important rule as the captain of your ship is to keep the ship afloat. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.